Welcome to Tommy Solo's Famous Friends. This is where I get to chat with people who I've connected with over the years in the world of arts and entertainment, and today we are continuing in part two of our interview with Holly Woods as part of our new segment, The Singers. Welcome back, Holly.
Hey, thank you for having me back. I appreciate it, as always.
Well, it's always a pleasure. Now, when we spoke last, we talked about technique, we talked about soul, we talked about a lot of interesting things. And I understand that you are not retired from the music business, so we can get back into that. That said, there's something that's been kind of on my mind for a while, and there are a lot of, we'll call them legacy bands out there who are touring with replacement singers and in some cases, totally new bands. For example, Journey has for some time now been touring with a young fellow named Ariel Pineda, and he is a wonderful singer. But I don't feel like Journey's ever been the same since Steve Perry. And I know that you have given your blessings to the new Toronto, but I feel like Toronto has never been the same since your departure.
Well, I think it is one of those things where, and I hate to simplify it so much, but it's kind of like the old expression, the show must go on. I think the way to look at it is if the fans still really, really want to hear the music and they want to hear the music live and they want to hear it done by some great professional musicians, then keep the show going. Now, if they don't pay for the tickets, if they don't want to come and sit down front and enjoy the music, then you know that it's probably not a good thing to replace people. But in these situations, crowds have not decreased in any amount. I haven't really heard much of anything new coming out of any of these bands, as you said, Journey and whatever. So again, I think we need to go back to the homage thing. It's more like paying homage to the original singer or guitarist, whoever it may be that was replaced. I think another way to look at it is, isn't it nice to know that when you retire willingly, and let's just say you told the boss, okay, boss, I've been here for 40 years, and I really think that my time is up, and I appreciate, the wonderful times we've had and everything, and I've been treated well, but I'm gonna turn in my resignation now, and I wish you good luck. Don't you expect your boss to find somebody else who can do the job? They're going to want to keep the company rolling.
Well, that's a good point, and I've talked over the years about how I've kind of lost my love for the music business, but I'll never lose my love for the music, and I get where you're coming from because a lot of the legacy acts are really a corporation. And I guess you kind of have to look at it from that perspective. And another example would be Pink Floyd, how...
Same thing.
Yeah,
Same thing, yep.
Roger Waters has been gone for a long time from the band, and, they've carried on. Now, having said that, I wonder, when you hear the new Toronto, do you take any pride in the legacy? How does that make you feel?
Definitely. I'm very proud of the fact that people still want to come out and hear the music. Even though I'm not there, I think I have enough faith in my fans to know that they feel like I'm there anyway. And I know that may sound egotistical, but there's a little bit of me that know that my fans know me well enough to know that I'm there. I'm definitely there in spirit. So they're still coming out and they're still enjoying it. So God bless them. Well, and God bless Michelle for carrying on. Absolutely. Way to go. She had a rough time. I really applaud Michelle for doing such a great job and getting out there and just doing it.
And something that just comes to mind, it's got to be a lot harder in the age of COVID. I haven't played anywhere. We did one show in front of 14,000 people last August, and I was assured that it was going to be all COVID safety protocol. And when we got there, they didn't do anything to block the stage, from access.
Oh, boy.
And knowing now what we know about the fact that it's safer outdoors than it is indoors without a mask, I would have not been so terrified. but I was at the point where
But
I
we
just
knew nothing then. We
no.
just knew nothing then. Yeah.
Yeah, so for these people that are going out there and doing it now, I mean, I got to take my hat off. And Michelle, you said, is it?
Yes, Michelle Truman. Yeah,
Yeah.
she was my backup singer before I retired. So we knew each other very well, and of course, she already knew the songs and all the parts, and she really knew the gig. So why not? I mean, she's a young girl loving the gig, doing the job, and Michelle is so talented. She's also an actress. She's done a lot of musicals in Canada, and she also does a tribute act to ABBA. So the little girl is a very busy vocalist. It's not like they just grab somebody up from, the neighborhood. Michelle's quite the vocalist there and quite the talented young lady. She really is.
Well, we're gonna
And
have
I admire her.
we're
I
gonna
think she did some child acting too when she was younger on one of the reality kids shows in Canada. I
okay.
can't remember the name of the show, but she's done some acting, I know.
Well, we're gonna have to look her up for sure. Now, as I said, I was kind of surprised to find out that you are not, in fact, retired from the music business. I know that after
No, sir.
Toronto, you did some work with Jane Olderman on the Demos Have Magic, and
Yes,
that
we tweaked some work that we had done a while back. We did some tweaking on it, and we put out a couple of songs that we had written before, and just kind of brought them up to date a bit, and had fun with them, and reconnected and chatted a lot, and we had a blast. I've co-written with a lot of people, but as you well know, Tommy, a lot of these things never get out to the music masses, as they say, because they're not sellable or you don't get the right, how shall I say, music production behind it all, the money people. But I love to write. So I've co-written with so many different people and so many different projects. And Jane and I did a lot of work together and had a lot of fun. So it was great to put this project out with her again. We loved it.
and I do have to highly recommend to any of our listeners that they look up the Demos Have Magic and your work with Jane Olderman. That was really impressive for me. And when you talk about stuff that doesn't get out there, I recently learned that if you're an actor and you do a scene and it gets cut, you still get paid. And that's the difference when you're a musician. If you record something
Hmm.
and you put your blood, sweat, and tears into it, and the record company doesn't promote it, it just doesn't go anywhere. Now, I know that you know Darby Mills, who
Oh,
is
sure.
is
Yeah, many years we go back.
yeah, and she was well known as the front person, lead singer for the Headpins. And then as she left that band, she was then signed to her own deal, and she went over to Europe and recorded with some really top shelf artists. I think she was actually at Pete Townshend's studio. And so she
Yeah.
came back to Canada and she went to meet with the A&R people, and the person who had signed her had been replaced. And
Yes.
so, of
Hmm.
course, they're not about to promote the Legacy Act, if you will, because that's not
Right.
their baby. So Darby Mills was replaced with a young Tiffany. And now, I guess the positive is that Darby has had her own project going for some time, the Darby Mills project, and she's been reasonably successful with that. Now, I know that you are back in the music, and you said you've been doing a lot of writing. What exactly is going on with you and your music right now?
Right now, I just moved and it's been settling in here with Wanda at the new house and getting everything done. I mean, I'm sure everybody out there knows what it's like to move. You have to change your address. And at my age with Social Security, and you have to take care of your Medicare, and I'm still getting those things done. So, when I have time for myself, it's me and my little baby Taylor guitar just wailing away. And I just finished a new little blues number the other day that I'm really fascinated with. And I'm just fooling around with that right now. But when I do get the ideas finished up to the point where I really like them, I'll probably send them over to Jane. And imagine with her great mindset that she has, she's so great at doing things long distance too. I think she can just work magic with things. So, yeah, I think I'll probably send those along to Jane and a couple other people, and we'll go from there. You'll see them probably either on YouTube or whatever, maybe even Facebook, things like that. But yeah, I'd like to get some stuff out on YouTube and have a little fun. We were thinking of putting together a little podcast when I get down to Manteo with my good friend and just do it all about classic rock and the people that we know in it and the fun we had with it. So, yeah, so I'm staying busy, Tommy. I really am.
Really
And
good.
loving every minute of it because it's very freeing.
That's certainly good news. Now, I'm curious, you mentioned that Jane works magic with this stuff. I don't know if you know.
She does. You can give her an idea and she will run all bases with it and get it done and back to you in about 2 days.
Now, I don't know if you know Brian Gagnon. He's a Toronto artist, and he had a couple of bands, Dillinger and then The Hunt, and they were
I know
signed.
I remember the haunt. I
Yeah,
remember the haunt.
they were signed and had marginal success. You know how it goes in the music business. They promote you to a point, and then you owe them all the money back, whatever. But
Oh yes,
so
sir.
so so
Can we talk?
yeah. So Brian, I think does essentially the same thing as what you're talking about with Jane, where he has artists come in who maybe play guitar and sing, and then what he does is he records all the parts around it. And he's been quite successful as a one-man backup band for these artists. I gather that's the same thing. Like, is Jane a multi-instrumentalist? Like, does she do the drums and the bass and all that?
Yep. Uh-huh.
Okay.
And also, I also want to mention this as well. My keyboard player from Toronto, Scott Cryer, has moved to South Carolina. He is now very near me. So he and I will be collaborating very soon. We will be writing together. And Scott is a wizard at getting people to get behind us and whatever we're doing. So that's going to be a blast. I should be able to see him within the month, actually. He's going to be up this way. So that's another thing coming my way. And geez, as far as keeping busy, yeah, that's happening. So there's no retiring here.
Well, that's all really good news. And, it just brings me back to when you're living your honest life, and being yourself, how things do come to you.
Yes, and they come back to you and you alone. And that's something you have to remember. We come in alone, we go out alone. The old expression, we're all by ourselves when we die, and we're all by ourselves when we're born. And we should learn how to be by ourselves when we're living. And when you have great friends, they let you be you, but they also throw in a hand when needed. And that's the beauty of being able to take a few music parts and send them over to Scott Cryer, keyboard player for the band Toronto, or take a few lyrical things and chords I've done and send them down to Jane Olderman, a great producer. That's what it's all about, collaboration and making sure that in the bottom of it all comes back to you.
Absolutely.
That's the beauty of it.
Now, I'm curious, Holly, you have notoriously been able to hit some really high notes. Have you ever had it measured? Like, would you say that you have a 4-octave voice, or where would you sit at, let's say, at your prime?
At one point, it was measured at 5 octaves. At one point.
Wow. Oh, boy.
I'd say on a good night back in the day, it was always 4. 4 was never a problem. On a good night, probably 4.5 would definitely be used in the set.
Yeah, and in the last episode, we talked about things to do to look after your voice. And I've had a few people comment to me that how surprising it is that I can still hit certain notes and so on. And it comes down to just getting proper rest and keeping yourself saturated, and as you say, don't drink cold liquids, especially not on stage. And
don't stop. Don't ever stop singing or playing because if you don't use it, you lose it. And a voice and a finger, everything you do with those is done with muscle. And if you don't keep your muscle trained and worked, it'll go flaccid, and eventually you'll lose all your bulk. So the more you use it, the stronger, the more muscular it gets. And those muscles build up, and pretty soon they're as strong as iron. So, yeah, it's not going to go away when you keep using it. It's when you take, years and years off and you don't sing and you don't play that you'll find when you go back that it's, gosh, gee, I don't have it like I used to. And it's because your muscles have gone flaccid.
Muscle
And
atrophy, yeah.
They've just rested and lost their way. They're not strong like they used to be.
Well, it's interesting, you've just inspired the notion in me that since COVID started, I've been posting little videos of me playing and singing.
Oh, yes. I see them every day.
And,
I see them every day, of course.
And the thing is, I've always been saying that I've been doing it for the people, to give people something to smile about. But really, I'm doing it for me as well.
Doing it for you, yeah. For you as well, but also to let everyone know that you're having fun. And just listening to you and seeing your smile makes us have fun too.
Absolutely.
We can have fun watching you play. I mean, music can be fun as well as being, very thoughtful and introspective. It can also be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Watching someone else have fun playing it is great.
And, you were always a really exciting front person, and you always really have gotten into the performance, and your singing is unparalleled. That goes without saying. I have personally in the past been accused of being more of an entertainer than an artist. And I take issue with that because I feel like it's on us to entertain. And you can only entertain with a good performance, but I think they go hand in hand.
Well, yeah, and you can't fake it. You can only be what you are. You can't go on stage and do something that's very uncomfortable. People can spot that. So for someone to call you an entertainer, I would say that that's quite a compliment, frankly.
And I remember years ago when I did mostly covers in my live shows, I would do a Beatles set. And for years, based on the audience reaction, I thought that I really did a good job of covering the Beatles, like as far as the tonality and so on. I listened to recordings and watched videos, and I really didn't sound that much like the Beatles, but I got into that energy, and with the head movements and all that stuff.
Well, yeah, you told the story. You told the story, and you told it well.
And so people assumed by my physicality that I was doing a good job of covering the Beatles, when really it was just the energy.
Yes. And a lot of times that can cover a multitude of things. If you've got the energy and you're really putting it out there and you're showing a lot of passion, you don't have to be the world's greatest player, because right then you're the world's greatest entertainer. And after all, isn't that part of what we do, is entertain?
Absolutely.
I mean, that's one of our fortes, is to entertain. Make sure that they are happy. I want to see those people leave with a smile on their face or a tear in their eye. I mean, really, that's what I want.
Absolutely. Now, you remember the band Yes. John Anderson.
Yeah.
John Anderson is a phenomenal singer as well.
I always thought he's always been one of my favorites.
And, I'd love to talk to him at some point, but, woulda, coulda, shoulda. The thing is that I saw Yes on their Union tour, where they had pretty well anybody who had ever been in the band was on stage at the same time. Musically, it was phenomenal. From an entertainment perspective, I almost fell asleep. And to make it even worse, they had a rotating stage, and it rotated very slowly. So it was almost like, look into the hypnotic eye, And so the thing was that you had John Anderson and you had Steve Howe and Trevor Rabin and all these wonderful, Rick Wakeman and all these wonderful, Alan White, all these amazing musicians on stage, and they just stood there, and,
like a hologram.
And I think some of them were actually reading sheet music. It was just, I thought,
could have been a hologram.
Well, who knows? It was the 90s, but, and that's really, to me, the difference is that people like who go out there and you're just a spark plug. There's no other, like you, something lights up in you and it lights us up.
And the people light me up. I mean, that's what does it for me is as soon as I walk out and see those faces, that's it. I'm lit. I'm totally lit up. There's no way you can take that away from me, that feeling of seeing everyone there. It's like, oh, right, all my buddies are here. We are going to have a party because we're all together on this one.
Absolutely. And it really, people often think that in order to be a good singer, you have to take voice lessons. And that might not hurt in some cases. In fact, I did take a few voice lessons back in the early 80s when I was having some trouble on the road. And I don't
No,
know.
it's good. Yeah, it's very good for you. You make sure you get the right teacher for what you want to sing. Yeah, it's very good for you.
But I think really, aside from any technique, what I got the most out of was being told flat out to look after myself, physically,
Yes,
and
that's the most important thing.
to eat right, sleep right, and to keep myself properly saturated. And I think that we mentioned at some point, that the lure of partying. And yeah, who doesn't want to go out and party when you're 21 or 19 or whatever it is? But if you're the
Sure, yeah.
if you're the singer in the band, everything rests on your shoulders.
It does, yeah.
And if you're the Beatles and everybody sings, oh well, but the fact of the matter is, Holly Woods carried the show. So if Brian Allen and Jimmy Fox went out partying all night, they could probably do their part, but they couldn't do it if Holly went out and partied all night.
Yeah, it would show. But the thing is to, like getting back to vocal lessons, you have to be if you're really serious about, doing your own music and your own thing and you want to take lessons, that's cool as shit. I mean, that's great. Definitely say yeah. But be careful when it comes down to technique because you don't want to be taught technique. Technique belongs to you. To have someone teach it to you is going to change your overall being. And the whole thing is to be your original self. And you can't do that when you're doing something that was taught to you. It changes your whole originality, if you know what I mean. So you have to be real careful with that technique thing. So I can show you this technique, or you should try this technique, or yeah, it can totally change. It can alter the sound of your voice. It can alter the tone of your voice. And, maybe it allows you to skip a few steps along the way and, all that stuff. But in the long run, you're going to lose a bit of your originality. And I'm not so sure that's great. So be very careful with that technique thing.
I agree 100%. And, I mentioned at some point that I had a couple of years where I won cover track of the year for a couple of songs. I did. One in particular was my cover of the old classic Hooked on a Feeling. And for years, decades probably, I wanted to cover that song in my own way. But I could never quite wrap my head around how I was going to do it. As it happened, I hooked up with Ed Pranskus, who was the original drummer from the Canadian band Thundermug. And he was able to watch me sing and somehow magically pick a tempo to match the way I breathe and the way I sing. And I find that's so important too, is to find the right tempo, for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And another Canadian artist, Michelle Wright, who had some major success in Nashville and so on back in the day in the 80s and is on a resurgence in her own career path. I remember she had an article in, I think it was Canadian Musician magazine, where she talked about singing. And the main thing she said was, work within your range. And, you see so many young people out there, their veins are sticking out, in their neck. And there's a vein popping out on their forehead because they're trying to cover Robert Plant when he was 18,
right,
or whatever, trying to sing Steve Perry when that's not your range.
Oh, my God, that happened to so many singers in the 80s, Tommy. You have no idea. and I will not mention any names, but a couple of people that I not grew up with, but we came up together along the same time, who eventually became quite famous. Just really just tearing themselves apart, getting those notes up high, up high, up high, up high, up high, because whoever the lead songwriter was would write the song in that key, specifically so you'd have to hit the heights that was in that band. But you go 10 years down the line, and that shit hurts. So, if you're not the songwriter and you're doing that song and it's written in a key that it's really not in your range, you're stuck with it because it's on vinyl now. And that's what happened to a lot of the 80s singers. 10 years down the road, it got tough, man, real tough.
Don't I know it? And I spoke to Earl Johnson from the band Moxie a while ago, and he was talking about how when Moxie first started out, Buzz Shearman would just start to lose it after 3 or 4 nights. And so what they did is they made the accommodation and they tuned down a half step, and Earl went with heavier strings and so on, so that they were accommodating the singer. And I think that's something that, especially if you're a young singer listening out there, don't let the band pigeonhole you into what they want. I think that as a singer, you have to know your range. And I think that, as you said, if you write your own stuff, then you're going to be in your comfort zone.
Yeah, because if it is someone else doing the major songwriting and they're giving you the song and telling you that's what you have to sing, you better stand your ground or you're not going to have a very long career. You better stand your ground that it's way too high for you. Let's bring it down, a notch or like you said, half step, whatever, which Toronto did for me as well the last couple of years or so. We did that. A lot of bands do it. Sometimes they go a whole key down. So. But as Jan Arden said, I believe, I don't want to quote her, like word for word. I'm just paraphrasing. I think she said, when you have to start lowering it a key or so, I think it's time to probably maybe start doing some other songs or something, start doing something else. I forget exactly how she put it, but it was funny in Jan's usual funny way. It was a funny thing to say.
Well, I think that...
Yeah, when you start having to bring it down a key or so, you're in trouble. So
I think that the best singers are always working within their comfort zone. I think that's a big part of it. This has been an awesome conversation once again, Holly, and I don't want to take up your whole day. I think that we've given singers some positive things to think about, and I am so excited to hear what you have coming. You'll have to keep me and the rest of us all posted. Thanks so much, Holly, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Tommy, as always. Love you very much, and I'm so happy to be on the show, and thank you for making me the first. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. Until next time, Holly, cheers.
All right. Tommy, best wishes, and have a great day, okay?
Will do. Well, I could not have picked a better choice as the debut artist on this new Singers series. Holly Woods is going to be one tough act to follow. Now, here for your listening pleasure is, from her collaboration with Jane Olderman, The Demos Have Magic, Holly Woods singing The High Point. Enjoy.
Why is it the road to heaven cuts straight through hell? Why is it the higher I got, the further I fell? I fly so high, I may never come down. I try so hard to never touch ground. try so hard to never touch ground. Ooh, I feel the wind behind me carries me away. I'm getting ready for the hard point, the hard point, the hard point again. Yeah, I'll reach the hard point, the hard point, the hard point I can.
It carries me away.
Carries me away. I'm getting ready for the hard point, the hard point, the hard point again. Yeah, I'll reach the hard point, the hard point, the hard point I can. Yeah, I'll reach the hard point, the hard point, get ready again. Yeah, I'll reach the hard point, the hard point, the hard point I can. I'll reach the high point, get ready again. Yeah, I'll reach the hard point, the hard point, the high point I can. The high, get
Tommy Solo's Famous Friends is a one-man production, meaning that I've done all the work, including guest acquisition, recording, editing, and so on. And hey, if you like the show, why not subscribe and help support us through Patreon at patreon.com/TommySolo. The theme song for Tommy Solo's Famous Friends is a clip from my original composition, The Burn. All rights reserved. And you can find me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thanks for listening, and until next time, cheers.